Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool, and I have another kind of Klein-Milwaukee comparison, but it goes a little bit further than just things being close or identical, and it has to do with this thing right here. This is an impact-rated conduit reamer and bit driver. This has a front end that you can run little bits in, but I used it a couple times. I think this is a pro-level tool. This is not a DIY tool. And that doesn't mean a DIYer couldn't use it. What it means is that the frequency of use might not meet the safety of use. And that has to do with this length here. Here's the Klein version. Now, first of all, they sell for about the same price. They do about the same thing. And the Klein is made in the USA. And this one is made in China. But what happens here is it has two functions. It has the reaming function, which it does do a little bit differently, and it's got a bit driving function. And this has a longer shaft, which allows it to reach into a more recessed area and do the bit driving. So you can both ream and bit drive. So if you have conduit, you could ream it, and then you can, drive the bits, either holding it on the wall or, connecting the electrical lines, whatever it is. They both do that. The problem is, and I did this the absolute first time I ever touched it, went to use it, and naturally my hand went onto this, and guess what? You start turning this, there's a reamer right where you normally grab, and guide the bit or stabilize the bit. And it's very easy to do because this is just asking for you, to kind of center it up. And then you give it a little spin, and that's exactly what I did. Luckily, I didn't get hurt, but it was like I even knew that could happen, and my just instinct, muscle memory, whatever you call it, to use the tool immediately put this one in a dangerous position. This, on the other hand, sits so close, you are less likely to want to grab it and try to guide the bit in. But either way, it's something to think about. Now on the handles, the self-driving, now the reason you may want to go with one of these on a impact driver or drill or something is simply because of the twisting. The force twisting is like putting a really long wood screw in by hand. It hurts. I've got a possible solution. I'll get to that. But anyway, these are the two handheld ones. Klein, this is just an industry standard. Great design. Little thin sometimes. People complain about that compared to the Milwaukee. You can see the reaming is thicker, but a lot of people say the Klein is sharper overall and stays in the game longer even when dull. The Milwaukee you can easily switch out. You can just drop in a little DeWalt tool here. Actually, I have this one set for the wherever it went, this guy here. You can just get a replacement. You can just unscrew this and pop that out and buy a new one if you want. But anyway, that twisting motion, with these types of handles is something that can really, age your wrist. This is a tether. If you're using it at height, maybe tie it down, or maybe you have three hands and you want to be able to just drop the tool. These bits on the front end of this Milwaukee, it actually has kind of this flip around with essentially 4 different bits and essentially 2 different nut drivers plus the reaming. So 4 bits plus 2 nut drivers plus reaming. There's your 7-in-1, which is what Milwaukee calls this thing. It is a little more expensive. It is made in Taiwan. It's about 40 bucks. The Klein, I've had this one, well, it's even rusting on me. It does only this size slotted screws. That's it on the front end of this guy. Now here's where I'm going. With this, I think there's a better use of it, and that is to throw it in if you can find a locking bit handle. And I don't remember, this is a Duratech here, an inexpensive little Duratech, but I don't have very many of these ratcheting bit drivers with a locking head. But check that out. That one might actually save your wrist a little bit from having to grab this tight and twist it and release and twist it. I think there might be a benefit there, but wait, there's more. What about this this Philo here? It's also a locking one. The locking, because this can get stuck, and it's no fun, you know, if you have to keep adjusting or reapplying the handle to the tool. This has a adjustable angle, so you might be able to get something into a position that works. But this one, to me, would be a really effective way of, you know, of reaming out the conduit or EMT. And sometimes I use this stuff, the conduit or the EMT, for fencing simply because it's inexpensive. I've actually used that for projects because you can buy it, you know, a bulk metal tube for not very expensive and easily mount it as a fence option. But anyway, something like that might work as a benefit, ergonomic benefit for reaming, since a lot of people complain. You know, professionals complain over time using hand reamers, which is exactly why you would want to be able to throw this into, you know, your impact and use that. But that is so dangerous if you happen to be hanging onto it or let your hand slip onto it while you're trying to guide that. So to me, you know, I've heard of people getting hurt by these things, you know, in bit drivers or impacts, but they also swear by them as they're, you know, a great tool. However, I'm going to say for a DIYer, if you don't use the tool enough to kind of lock in what this thing is good at and what's dangerous about it, it's probably best to go with this Klein, because there's less chance you're going to feel, you know, you're going to probably notice when you go up to grab that. But still, that's a kind of a dangerous thing. Or better yet, you know, if you don't want to invest in this, but you kind of want both, and maybe you'll deliberately use this at times, you know, conscientiously, so you don't actually hurt yourself, but you could drop it into, you know, a good solid locking handle and get most of the performance benefits you would, or maybe all of them, by going with, you know, a standalone tool. Just some thoughts, and again, comparing Klein and Milwaukee. So anyway, there it is. There's I just DIY'd a pro-level tool. Let me know your experience, your thoughts, if you've had any issues with these, injuries, or you think they're sliced bread. You know, it's just great. And with that, Doc out.